systems go. Clear for liftoff.
What is going on, Ship It Nation YouTube station? Back with another MLB breakdown here. Appreciate everyone joining. MLB season's been off to a blazing start over here at the Nation. I know our guy Rio shipped 100 big ones there. Same night, the member shipped 20 stacks there. We had another shipper last night or yesterday on the Sunday slate. I had some close calls. Almost got all the way home in some MME yesterday. Sundays are wild. Chalk pitchers got blown up yesterday. We'll talk about it today. We got some just de facto, just due to the nature of the slate, right? So some pitchers that probably on a normal slate, right, or on a different slate wouldn't be as high owned as they are tonight. But that's just the nature of it, right? We're in starters 4 and 5 in some of these teams' rotations, and some of these teams' rotations just aren't good in general, right? Obviously, we got the Rockies on the slate here going up against the World Series runner-ups there, right? The AL champs from last year with obviously a loaded lineup there. We're going to talk a lot about Toronto, both pitching and hitters tonight for sure. But I'm back in the saddle with my guy, Matt. Welcome in, Matt. Happy to be doing MLB shows. You'll be with me pretty much every Monday throughout the entire MLB season. G. Risen's going to kind of fill in until NBA's over with you kind of pulling double duty there. But you're here tonight. You're ready to break it down. You did the slate plan. It's already up. That's one nice thing about Ship It Nation, right? We get the content up nice and early. I'll bring you in, man. What's going on, brother? Happy Monday.
Yeah, happy Monday to you too, man. Always, it's been a minute, so happy to be on here talking some seam with you, man. MLB, I know we both love, so excited to break down this slate with you. I think we got a good one. Yeah, man, I see our boy Rio is in the chat trying to win another. I don't even know if there's 100K up top, but whatever the main contest is, big props to him. I know we've chatted since then, so just big shout out there. Man, I'm just excited to get on here. We were talking a little bit before. The last time we did a show together was our NFL takedown breakdown show. So it's been a minute with all my back stuff, so it's like almost like a full circle moment for me. I feel good. Happy to be on here talking some MLB. Again, we got a fun slate. I think there's a ton of different ways to go, and I'm just happy to be on here breaking it down with you, brother.
No, happy to be here. Say hi to a couple people. We got our guy Newlands here, fellow Wisconsinite. Go Brewers, baby. Let's go. Everyone counted us out yesterday. They said, hold on, not so fast, right? Obviously, it's the White Sox. Nothing crazy there, but Brewers, best record in baseball last year. Obviously, they do this typical shit in the postseason, fall in their face as normal there. But it's a fun roster. They're going to score a lot of runs all season long because they play the baseball, right? The old-fashioned way, Matt. Little single, little steal, little RBI single, RBI double, right? Drive the runs in. So we'll talk.
I know all about that being in Cleveland.
Yeah,
so
absolutely, Cleveland's the old Indians were the grandfathers of that old tactic there. Brewers said, hold on, let me latch onto that last year and see what happens. And it happened to fare pretty well for them for the course of the season. But got Jason Turner in here. I want to give a shout out to Flip to Flop in here. He said he or she had 2 profitable nights, Thursday and Friday last week, listening to the show. So, hey, that's what we're here for. Even if you're not a Ship It Nation subscriber, we do these shows. We think Ship It Nation is the best place in the industry overall. And if you're not a member yet, I'll go ahead and pull it up here on the screen. Like you can see, you can go ahead and click the Join the Nation right here. And again, if you never joined Ship It Nation yet or never got any packages, the trial package, just get in, start. You get all the sports. NBA still going on, NHL still going on. We got PGA. Obviously, it's not a great tournament this week, but there's still money to be made in the PGA streets. We got the Masters right around the corner. Trial, $19 gets you 5 days. The ability and membership for our partner over at SaberSim with the ability to build up to 150 lineups. But more so, if you're here for baseball, which majority of you, if not all of you, are in here outside of just supporting us on the screen. I'm assuming most of you are here for the MLB content and the breakdown that we're going to get to here shortly. Single sport. We did not have this last year. We do have it this year. Monthly, if you're just looking for content only, $29 a month. If you go to annual, it drops it down to under $20. I mean, you can't even go to go grab a sub sandwich nowadays, damn near at Subway for under $20. You get all the content for MLB, but the best bet is to have an optimizer like the power of SaberSim, especially for a sport like MLB, where it is so correlation driven in terms of lineup construction. $49 a month. If you just go to sabersim.com, you can't even get this optimizer unless you get all the sports and pay over $100 a month. You get our content plus the optimizer with the ability to build up to 150 lineups for like the mini max contest or any of the even smaller stakes contests over there on DraftKings for $49 a month. So get in there, check us out, shipitnation.com. Again, we do have, like I talked about, the Masters coming back. So you have the Master special here up on the top of the screen. But like I said, we did not have single sport offering last year. So if you're looking for a home for the MLB season here and even for the rest of the sports, check us out there. Best rate in the industry. And safe to say our content's pretty damn good too. If you've seen the leaderboards, Ship It Nation logos have been littered all across the leaderboards for golf and MLB over the weekend for sure. NBA, same thing. Hell of an NBA team with yourself, Matt, and Rio, Ham, Tito, the rest of the crew doing the NBA content there. But let's jump right in here, Matt, and go pitchers. We're going to do like we always do. We'll go pitchers. We'll go 8K and above, 8K and below, and then we'll go game by game order in order of the stone. One of our premium tools over here. I'll pull it up and showcase it. It's really the one-stop shop for everything baseball, right? It's got our rankings on it, hitter rankings, all the metrics, the ISOs, the WOBAs, the K rates, the projections, ownership, everything in one spot. So we'll do that. But from a pitcher standpoint, it's a gross pitcher slate in general. You're definitely going to have to hope to find the guys to score 12 to 15 points is what it seems like, right? If you get 15, 16 DraftKings points here tonight from your pitchers, you're probably feeling pretty damn good. And on the other side, we're probably going to see some pitchers go negative here tonight, just the nature of the way the slate is. And, I mean, when one of the highest owned pitchers is in that Wrigley win game, that's telling you kind of the way the slate's shaking up, right? Edward Cabrera, 8,500, wind blown out. Obviously, the reason why the Cubs are going to be the highest owned offense on the slate. Good reason. We know it's the most wind-driven park in all of baseball, right? And you got some pretty hefty winds blowing out there in Wrigley, which obviously has a higher effect than other places. So talk to me in terms of the pitchers, 8K and above. You got Cabrera as probably the second highest one pitcher on the slate from one of the guys we're going to talk about later when we get to below 8K. You got Suarez and Castillo, who kind of sandwich Cabrera. Both of them are going to be lower owned, I should say. Castillo gets a tough matchup against the Yankees. However, does have that good pitcher's ballpark out there in Seattle. Pitched really well last year at home. Yankees do have a ton of power and a bunch of lefties. However, they also have a ton of strikeouts, right? We've seen a lot of strikeouts. We've seen a lot of ceiling performances from pitchers last year against the Yankees. But when it goes bad, it obviously goes really bad. But you can say that about any pitcher on the slate here. So talk to me about Cabrera, Castillo, and Suarez up at the top. Suarez, obviously a lefty facing Houston, which is never great. He is the highest priced guy. Clay Holmes, nobody really going to get to. Sasaki, wonky. I mean, this dude doesn't know where the ball is going when it feels like when it leaves his arm. And obviously got the short leash with Dave Roberts out there. But what do you see here? 8K and above. Obviously, Cabrera, by far and away, probably the highest ceiling on the slate by a pretty wide margin out of anyone.
Yeah, I agree with that. That being said, there isn't a lot to like from the 8K and above pitching options tonight, just in terms of bad matchups, bad weather, guys you don't feel comfortable with, all the above. So I do think Cabrera is the best option. He projects for the most fantasy points, pretty much industry-wide. I don't feel great about it. The Angels showed in Houston that they can get to any starter, really. And with the wind blowing out in Wrigley, like it's not a great weather spot for him. He's just getting ownership because there isn't really much to like on this slate. So I don't know. Between the two chalk pitchers today, which seemingly is Cabrera and Ponce, I think I'm more leaning into Ponce, but we'll get there in a minute. Cabrera, obviously, as you mentioned, his upside's real. The Angels strike out a ton. I'm leery about playing him into ownership, though. I don't think he's a bad play. I think certainly, again, to your point, his upside's real, but I feel leery about it. That said, I have very limited interest in Ranger Suarez facing just a still really bad matchup for him facing Houston here. So I get it in tournaments because we don't have good pitching options, but I don't think I'm going to get there. Same with Castillo. He's got the good ballpark, but obviously I don't like the matchup. I think Castillo's best days are clearly behind him. He's just no longer the strikeout pitcher he once was. He's priced where he should be, if not a little bit too expensive. And the ownership is there. Like with pitching options like this, where I think a lot of these guys project similarly to the guys cheaper than them, I'd rather go to the guys cheaper than them. Outside of Cabrera, who I think, as you mentioned, and again, I'll say for the third time, possesses the most upside of any of these guys. So he's my favorite of the bunch. I don't love this range, though, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, we're in lockstep there. I mean, I do think Cabrera, if there's one pitcher most likely to have a gotta-have-it score on the slate, it's probably Cabrera just because of the strikeouts, right, that this Angels team has in it. Obviously, they have a healthy Trout right now, and Neto, who looks great and is going to have a hell of a run. And those two alone definitely do have stolen base potential. Angels in general don't have a ton of speed, but those two guys will speed or will steal. Cabrera did allow the most stolen bases of anyone in the majors last year as well. So overall, I do like Cabrera. I am worried on him. He's probably a guy where I'm probably going to go right around the field, if not a little under in my MME stuff. I'm doing two main teams and some 20 max stuff here tonight. I'll probably just be match the field or go a little under, like probably 20 to 25% Cabrera, which is going to be under the field and just I have outs if he gets there, and I trust myself to build good rosters with Cabrera in general. So I'm with you. I don't love this range. It's not a typical slate where the top tier is loaded, right? Obviously, when you get in the days 4 and 5 of these teams' rotations, this is kind of the nature of slate. Suarez, I have no interest in, even at the ownership. I mean, he's going to be unknown there. I think he's a solid pitcher. It's just I don't love attacking Houston. They're already a contact-heavy team, and now they're going to have 8 righties to throw at Suarez outside of Jordan, who's one of the best lefty hitters anyways in the game. So I just think it's a brutal matchup for him. I do have a little bit more interest in Castillo just because I do think I don't really truly believe this ownership because I think everyone's going to go there. They're going to look at it, and they're like, okay, if I'm playing in, it's just so much easier to click Cabrera in a matchup against a strikeout-happy Angels team than look at Castillo clicking it against Aaron Judge. And I mean, that roster, right? I mean, it's a tough click. I trust the upside in Castillo. I know he's not the same pitcher he has been. He has in his career fared pretty well against the Yankees as well, which obviously take that for face value because obviously historical data isn't the end all be all, if any relevance in baseball. But I just do typically like to look at that a little bit just for kind of a deciding factor when I'm trying to find pitchers to play, right? I just think Castillo with the ballpark compared to a Wrigley win game, I'll take my chance there with the strikeout, and I trust a veteran to be able to navigate the lineup smart enough. And, hey, even if those guys do get a hold of one, that ballpark does help them out there. So Castillo is pretty interesting. Clay Holmes, I think, would be the only other guy I'd even have any sort of interest, which is still not much. He's not a strikeout arm. He was about an 18% K rate last year, pitches the contact there. And I mean, I get it. It's the Cardinals here, but Cardinals with JJ Weatherhoot, he's looking great. Alec Burleson's been on a tear. It's really good hitting weather in Busch Stadium here tonight too. So for me, it's really Cabrera and Castillo up top. Really where the rubber kind of meets the road here is below 8K. And this is where a majority of my teams are going to live, is just not even go up to any of these spend ups. I think Kyle Harrison's pretty interesting here, coming over from the Giants to Milwaukee. Milwaukee obviously is my team. They do a great job of developing pitchers and kind of seeking out pitchers that other teams are kind of giving up on and just didn't have a knack to develop. Kyle Harrison also added another pitch to his arsenal. His velocity looks pretty good. I think Kyle Harrison's pretty interesting. I like the Milwaukee bats behind him too at home to give him some run support there. So It's not the greatest matchup, but I mean, outside of the top of that lineup, I mean, the Rays lineup looks atrocious. Obviously, Cody Ponce, we don't know really what this guy's going to be. He led KBO last year in terms of pitching. KBO is not the MLB, but again, he's facing the Rockies in Toronto, and the Blue Jays have almost a 6 implied run total behind him. So he's really interesting to me. Jacob Lopez had huge strikeout numbers last year. Obviously, he was really splitsy. Pitched in that park in Sacramento there. I think for upside arm that people really aren't going to click at the same exact price point as the highest owned pitcher on the slate in Ponce, who I do like. And if choosing between him or Cabrera, I'm with you there. I'm team Ponce just due to the salary discount there. But I think Jacob Lopez is pretty interesting. And then the two guys down at the bottom, Ryan Weathers and Bryce Elder there. Talk to me down here below 8K. Hit on those guys I mentioned and any of these other guys that I failed to mention here.
Yeah, we see this slate pretty similarly. I think you like Harrison a little bit more than me. Not that I have any arguments against him. He just more looks like lumped in with all these other guys, in my opinion. I think a big reason of that is he's getting ownership because he's so cheap. I wish he were a little bit lower owned, but can't quibble on it too much. Weathers is my guy here. A big part of that is he's the cheapest, 6,300, really good price tag. I've always liked his stuff. He was up and down in spring training, but his upside is just real in this spot. Obviously, a much better pitching park than he normally pitches in. Again, another guy I wish the ownership wasn't there, but outside of Cabrera and Ponce, ownership is kind of just scattered throughout. So I like Weathers here at that price tag. I don't think he should be like 1,000 cheaper than a lot of these other pitchers on the slate. So I think he's my favorite SP2 with Ponce. I don't love either of those guys, and I wouldn't be surprised if either of them got rocked here, but that's kind of what we're dealing with on this slate. Yeah, to your point, Harrison, Milwaukee, another similar to Cleveland. Both teams are very good at developing pitchers. Wouldn't be surprised if he has a much better year than he's shown in the majors so far. I don't think I like the matchup as much as you. Again, not that I like Tampa bats here particularly. I just think I'm kind of indifferent towards it. And again, I think he just kind of is lumped in with these other guys, but wouldn't be surprised if he, leads this range in DK points when the slate is over. I'm a big Parker Messick guy. It's always like fighting with the devil trying to use a pitcher against the Dodgers, but he's a good pitcher and he's going to be really, really low owned. So he's the guy I'm more likely looking at in the future. But if you want to get on him tonight in large field stuff when no one's on him, again, maybe being a little bit of a homer there, but wanted to shout him out. I can get on board with Jacob Lopez. Big boom bust spot, in my opinion. Wouldn't be shocked if Atlanta hits a bunch of home runs here and you end up needing them in stacks or in tournaments as a stack. But on the flip side of that, if Lopez has his best stuff here, he's got real strikeout upside. So I see both sides of that. On a pitching slate we don't love, yeah, I can definitely get on board there. All the other guys kind of just, I think, can throw in. Like Elder, I understand why you'd play him because he's really cheap and he gets a really good strikeout matchup. We saw what the Athletics just did in Toronto. So I get going to Elder. He was pretty decent in spring training. He's just a guy I'd rather pick on than use. And I like the Athletics as stacked tonight. So I get it, but I'm on the other side of that. And I think you can make cases for legit every other pitcher on this slate just because there aren't really two guys I love. But I think I'm going to mostly stick to the Cabreras, Ponces, Weathers, and then like Harrison, maybe Messick mixed in. I don't know how many lineups I'm going to play, but I'm probably not going to have that big of a pool, even though I don't love anyone on this slate.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think you can pretty clearly, at least this is kind of what my pitching pool is going to look like. These 7 guys. Again, I already talked about kind of matching the field with Cabrera being a little under. I like Castillo a little more than you. I like Harrison a little more than you. Ponce, I'm going to kind of push the chips on and just eat that chalk there. I just think it's the matchup against the Rockies. He should have run support. Hopefully he can get me to the 5th inning. And there should be no pitch count concerns there, at least to get to the 5th inning. And get in line for the win bonus. Lopez, I really like just for the strikeout upside. I mean, this matchup could go very bad, like you alluded to, right? He does keep the ball on the ground, at least to lefties, has a 30% K rate to lefties as well. Still has the 29% K rate to righties, which there could be some kind of nuance or some noise in those numbers just from last year, but he does give up fly balls and some power to righties. However, I mean, really, Austin Riley and Albies are the only two really fly ball hitters that are going to hit from the right side. So if he can navigate around those, I mean, he has guys that obviously Ronald Acuna too, but Acuna hasn't looked great yet. I just think if he can avoid or even if he does give up a home run or two, I mean, there's a lot of these guys. I mean, every pitcher on the slate can get equally blown up, in my opinion, than the next guy. So a guy that's really not going to get played much has the highest strikeout rate, at least based on last year's numbers on the slate. I think he's pretty interesting. Bryce Elder is just more of a he's down there as a pivot off of Ryan Weathers, and he is 6,500, right? And there's just not a lot of guys who have good matchups. I mean, the A's just struck out an absolute crap ton against the Blue Jays. I mean, you saw yesterday what's his face. I was overweight on him for the Blue Jays. Eric Lauer have 9 Ks against him. Gosman had 12 Ks, and what's his face had 11, right? So they just strike out a ton. So Bryce Elder, I do think it is a plus matchup for him in terms of strikeouts. He's going to be unknown too, with Weathers there for good reason, right? Weathers, great play. I'm with you there. So my kind of lower owned guys are Lopez, Elder on the slate in terms of pitching. Let's go ahead and jump over and share the stone here. We had a question in the chat here on how to read the stone. So it's pretty easy. These numbers are all based on this season. So we did already switch over. So obviously some of these numbers are pretty inflated just based on what their small samples are from the year. But team on the left is the away team. Team on the right is the home team. All of these numbers reflected, like the xWOBA, the xISO, their K rates, everything is all adjusted based on home road splits, right? We do know hitters tend to like the backdrops right after looking at the pitchers. They can pick it up easier, things like that, right? So all of these metrics on the screen here you do see are home road splits. So they're all dated as well as the pitchers' numbers, right? Obviously, we're not going to have a bunch of pitchers' metrics in here because a guy like Cody Ponce never played in the majors, right? Based on recent. So first game, we got the Rockies, we got the Blue Jays. Blue Jays are probably going to be right up there with the Cubs in terms of ownership for a good reason. This is a really good offense, really good offense all year. We're going to play them a ton. Okamoto coming in, just hit a bomb yesterday. He's got tons of power in there. I mean, Addison Barger, you got him in the 4 spot, tons of power there. He's super cheap. Jesus Sanchez hit a bomb yesterday too. Lefties kill Sagano, and Sagano is by far and away the worst pitcher on the slate, extreme fly ball guy. This is just an absolute atrocious matchup for Sagano. I think the Blue Jays are in line for the highest owned stack or the best stack on the slate, even ahead of the Cubs, in my opinion. Even with that win game, we see it all too often, right, Matt? Everyone sees wind blowing out at Wrigley, just naturally just goes over there and just slams the chips in on that game and kind of looks past a lot of the other teams that can definitely contest. And we've seen it all too often, right? I see win games all the time at Wrigley and like a 5-4 game with like 1 home run or 2 home runs, right? Stuff like that. So I think the Blue Jays are really interesting, facing the worst pitcher on the league. Or on the slate for sure, and then a really bad bullpen behind him. What do you see here, Toronto and the Rockies?
Yeah, I'm with you all over with the Toronto stack. I mean, they just look really good here. It's hard to argue. I don't know how you could argue Toronto here. They're not even projected to be that highly owned because of the Cubs, as you mentioned. I mean, for my money, and that doesn't mean they're my favorite tournament stack on the board. I think on paper, they look like the best stack on the board, even over the Cubs. I like their matchup better. You've got the wind blowing out, but you get Sagano and then this awful Rockies bullpen. Ton of win equity. Well, it doesn't even matter for their stack, but yeah, there's just so much to like about Toronto here, not the least of which being their price tags. You got a cheap Jesus Sanchez. Barger's too cheap. Like Springer and Vlad are priced up, but the other guys aren't. So you can play really good guys with the Toronto stack. Yeah. I like them quite a bit here. It's hard not to like them. And I think in tournaments, in large field tournaments, you can make a case for a Rockies stack for sure. Pont's going to be real highly owned, in my opinion. Unproven at the MLB level. As you mentioned, the KBO is not MLB. He was really good there. Doesn't mean it's going to translate immediately. And it's baseball. So against probably what's going to be the highest owned pitcher on the board, because if anything, I think he gets steam and Cabrera loses ownership if I had to choose between any of those happening. So for my money, he's going to be the highest owned pitcher on the board. When you've got a guy like that getting so much ownership that's just an unknown, there's the case right there to be made for using Colorado in some tournaments. I don't think I'll get there, but again, wouldn't shock me if they're on the winner tonight. At least some Rockies here, just because of, again, how much of an unknown Ponce is. That being said, Ponce and the Blue Jays both look like arguably the best pitching option and arguably the best stack on the board. I think playing them together makes a lot of sense. And I think just loading up on them in any format makes, all the sense in the world. So we see it pretty similarly here.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. On the Rockies, I think you can pick some of these guys that hit right-handed pitching pretty well. Obviously, lefties typically have an advantage. Jake McCarthy has power. He's super cheap. TJ Rumfield, their young kid, he's showing a ton of power against right-handed pitching. He's 2,500 at first base. No one's going to play him. Julian, tons of power, got pinch hit a ton in Minnesota. I just don't think the Rockies really care that much, or they don't have guys that are quality MLB players to really mess around with pinch hitting too much. They're going to be doing everything they can to kind of hit 40 wins this season, in my opinion. So Julian there, I think is pretty interesting. Goodman's always a great option at catcher. So I think you can pick some guys off here. I'm not probably full stacking the Rockies by any means, but again, I full stacked the White Sox yesterday and they were completely unowned against a pitcher who got some ownership, and nobody was on them. So again, it's baseball, and that's the beauty of a portfolio. Are the Rockies a main team or a single entry cash 3-max stuff? Absolutely not. But in MME, Ponce is probably going to push 60% in high stakes single entry stuff. Like the 121, Ponce is probably 50 to 60% owned. Just like yesterday we saw, I'm drawing a blank on his name now, but he came in at like 60% owned in the 121 yesterday. I expect that for Ponce for a good reason, right? However, you now take 100 people in a room and you instantly throw 60 of them out of the room. And then the remaining 40, how many of those are playing Rockies? Probably 3 to 4, maybe. So then you're just contesting with a lot less people to get to the top. And in baseball, where especially like in the contest tonight, the $5 50K up top, where a lot more people just throw 150 in there and kind of just blindly run shit. I mean, I don't hate the Rockies as minis. I talk about Rumfield. I think he's good. Jake McCarthy, Julian, and Hunter Goodman, Tovar are kind of the main guys I'd look at there. I'm really not stacking them. Blue Jays 1 through 9, great plays. Definitely love the lefties. Varsho's probably one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. Jumping over to Atlanta, Bryce Elder, Jacob Lopez. We talked about both these pitchers, at least I did, in terms of pitching. But on the hitting side, right, this is another spot. Benefit of a portfolio. You can definitely play a guy like Shea Langeliers, who has some of the arguably right up there with guys like Cal Raleigh at the catcher position for sure, but in all of baseball in terms of power. Soderstrom's great. Rooker's great. Jacob Wilson's a great. Lawrence Butler has power. Jeff McNeil's a contact guy. They have struck out a ton. Bryce Elder's not the same strikeout guy is what the A's just faced up in Toronto with their pitching staff. They also got the front end of the rotation there in Toronto. Now they're getting the back end of the rotation here in Atlanta. A's and Braves here. What do you see?
Yeah, I think I'm going to push my chips in a little bit on the A's here. Again, Elder's never a guy I'm afraid to stack against. I like the ballpark for them here. I like the upside for them here as far as their home run equity goes. And I love the ownership because they're pretty expensive, but that doesn't really matter to me on this slate because there's not much opportunity cost at pitcher. So I'm willing to spend up to be contrarian on a stack that has a lot of home run upside. I get it. They strike out a ton. I don't think Elder's like the worst pitcher in the world, but he's a guy that can get gotten, especially if he doesn't have his best stuff. So I just like their upside here. I think you made a totally reasonable case about playing Elder himself in tournaments because of his price tag, but The flip side of that is he's not great. There's a reason he's that cheap. And the Athletics have home run upside. So I think they're a team I'm going to go pretty heavy on in tournaments because, again, I just like their upside here. And then Atlanta, I feel similarly about them as I do Lopez himself. I think each side has considerable upside. I'm leaning towards the Lopez side just because I'm with you. Guy that has, some of the highest strikeout upside on a slate without good pitching options isn't going to get a lot of ownership. I'm willing to rock with that. On the flip side of that, though, I'm certainly willing to say that Atlanta has upside here if Lopez, again, is off in any way because Atlanta's a lineup full of good hitters and they have power. So both sides of that are appealing to me in tournaments. And again, I think I'm going to go a little bit, push my chips in with the Athletics here. How do you see it?
Yeah, the only thing that's scaring me off is, if you watch that game yesterday, right, Acuna should have had a home run. The ball just got out there and just kind of dropped out of the sky. They had a couple of them like that. And the weather's going to be the same here today. It's mid-60s in Truist Park, wind blowing in, nothing crazy, but like 6 to 10 miles an hour, something like that. I'm seeing like 6 miles an hour or so right now blowing in. So that does help both of the case, especially for a guy like Jacob Lopez, who's a fly ball guy to righties. That does help the case to play him more for upside, especially at the low ownership. Same thing. It does help Elder a little bit too, right? A contact type pitcher. And this is obviously a plus strikeout matchup. You see the A's total here, 43% strikeout rate on the road against right-handed pitching. Obviously, it's a very, very small sample, only 3 games up there in Toronto. And again, I say the same thing. This is not the same pitcher as they just faced. However, home runs might be mitigated here at least somewhat. So could Shea Langeliers, Nick Kurtz, who obviously rookie of the year last year, Soderstrom, Brent Rooker, Ronald Acuna, Albies, Riley, all these guys can hit home runs. I don't love it from a stacking perspective. I think mini stacks here are pretty interesting if needed, but I do like some sneakier teams on the slate. So for offense purposes wise here, I just don't love it a ton. Shea Langeliers is obviously a great play at a catcher position. I think it's a good buy low spot on Acuna. Everyone's kind of sold him off after one series. It's still one of the best players in the MLB, especially when he's healthy. Hopefully he stays healthy all year for the sake of baseball and the sake of the Braves. But you don't see Ronald Acuna at 10% or under very often over the course of the season, especially at that price point. We saw him over 6K a lot of the times, right? Obviously double home run power and speed there. So I don't love it. I think mini stacks is fine. Braves do have a pretty good run total. Jacob Wilson is a fly ball guy. The hitter rankings look pretty solid for these Braves. I just don't love the game too much in general. Can't play everyone. So I'm going to be definitely probably like the field, not on that game too much there. Takes us to the chalkiest game on the slate for a good reason. Obviously, look at this combined ownership on the Cubs, 102%. I think that's probably still even a little light. Angels bullpen is absolutely atrocious. They got just absolutely lit up too against Houston. Those games went bonkers. As soon as the starters came out of that game, there was literally home run galore, runs galore in that Houston LA series. So they already burned through a bunch of their shitty bullpen in general. Now they got a guy in Ryan Johnson who I don't think is very good at all. Obviously there's some unknown there. We don't know too much about him. Cubs, far and away the chalkiest and quote unquote the best stack on the board. I just seen it far too often with these Wrigley win games. I don't know. Obviously the bullpen is helping the cause there. It's not a good starter. The wind's blowing out. It's also like 70 degrees in Chicago, which is crazy this time of the year. I think the Cubs are great, like everyone says, but I think the Angels are getting slept on here. Obviously, Neto and Trout are going to get played a little bit, but 10% of baseball is nothing. Both have power speed combination. Talked about Cabrera giving up a ton of stolen bases. I think he's interesting. And the Angels' power, I think, here is pretty interesting. A guy like Josh Lowe, who nobody's going to play at 3,600 in the outfield. I think he's interesting. Peraza has stolen base upside there. First, play him at second base, which guys like Terang and up at the top, Nico Horner are going to be super popular there in that low 4K range. I think a guy like Peraza here with a little like 9-1-2 stack for the Angels, right? Peraza, Neto, Trout all have some power at times and can steal bases. I think that's pretty interesting. So I like both sides of this game, obviously in tournaments, but the Angels in larger field tournaments, I think are really interesting here. What do you see?
Yeah, you also get the leverage against Cabrera here, who's going to get ownership just because of the lack of pitching options. So I can get on board with the Angels. hard to get away from the Cubs. I mean, I'm probably not going to play them, but it's not like I don't like them here. I just don't like the ownership compared to some other teams that I think are also in good spots that they might not be in as good a spot as the Cubs, but the ownership just isn't going to be there. So I'm willing to kind of play it how you are, that maybe the, wind game just brings in so much ownership and it doesn't play amazing. I mean, certainly this game could have some runs and a home run or two and not be the game you need. So yeah, I like the Angels shout out just because they're also playing in this weather spot and they're going against the chalky pitcher, but they're in a tough spot on paper facing Cabrera here. Much better bullpen than the Cubs are facing. So I get both sides of it. Certainly in cash games, I think it's kind of a mix between the Cubs and the Jays. And then in tournaments, both those teams look really, really good. But because there's such a lack of good pitching options today, there's also other really good stacks, which we'll get to. So I don't think you have to play either of those teams in single entry or 3-max type stuff just because of the nature of baseball. So I like both of them a lot. Cubs on paper, tough to get away from, but that's probably what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Cubs are not going to make either of my two main teams. I'm just going to roll the dice. I mean, I just think, it's just, if you play the Cubs, you're going to have to nail the right 5.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's
so like you're literally, it's like a 50, right? You're like flipping a coin almost, right? Like of the 9 hitters, right? You got to pick the right 5 because people are going to slam the Cubs, especially in MME stuff. And if you have one bust in the Cubs, yeah, you're probably going to make money, but you're probably not going to get all the way to the top. Obviously, right? Definitely, because there is going to be people that probably lock in the Cubs at 60, 70% of their teams, if not higher, right? So it's just a spot where I see these guys can hit home runs, right? PCA, obviously a great play. Michael Busch, a great play. Bregman's going to be inflated at third base, which is a pretty weak position, especially coming off the 2 home runs yesterday, right? Everyone just says, what do you do for me lately? And I think the Cubs are going to be a boom bust offense all year. We saw it already in their first series, right? They failed as chalk the one time, and then they smashed the other 2 times, right? So it's a tough situation. If the wind wasn't here, I think there'd be less people talking about the Cubs and more people talking about the Jays and teams like the Brewers, the Mets, the Dodgers, right? And just because there's 10, 12, 15 mile an hour winds, whatever it is, blowing out in Wrigley, they're just naturally getting slammed into everyone's team. So they're a great play by all means. It's just, I'm with you there. In tournaments, I just think there's other offenses that can match them here, right? The next game we're going to talk about, the Brewers, nobody's going to play them. No, not many people are on the Dodgers, which we're going to talk about later, right? The best offense in baseball. So I just think in tournaments, there's other spots. Go ahead and finish what you're saying and then take us into the Milwaukee and Tampa here.
No, I'm just completely on board with what you're saying. Like the Cubs, there's nothing really about them, in my opinion, that looks all that special. Like, I get it. They're facing an unknown pitcher. The wind's blowing out, but the ownership is just inflated. And I'm personally not trying to have to pick the best 5-man Cub stack with the best pitching options. Like if the Cubs go off, that's what you're going to need. So I'd rather play one of these teams that are lower owned, that if they get there, you have just a much better chance of getting to the top. So I personally don't love the Cubs enough where I feel the need to play them. There will be chalk teams in MLB where I will play because every slate is different and its own entity, but tonight is not that slate. I like lower owned offenses. I already talked about the Athletics. You mentioned the Brewers, the Dodgers. I like the Guardians a lot. Sasaki stinks. The Red Sox, there are other stacks that I can definitely get on board with that I could see winning tournaments tonight that will just be a lot easier to beat the field with if those teams go off than the Cubs, who will get so much ownership. So we see it the same, my man.
Awesome. Take us into to the Rays here and the Brewers. Nick Martinez coming over from Cincinnati there. Definitely a player who's probably going to be better developed in Tampa, just in that organization compared to Cincinnati. And obviously it's getting out of Great American Small Park there. Obviously Steinbrenner Field is another stadium where he's not going to have very pitcher friendly conditions pitching at home in Tampa here. But obviously he's in Miller Park. I'm going to always call it Miller Park, American Family Field now, Roof's probably going to be closed. I haven't looked, but either way, Milwaukee does play more hitter friendly than pitcher friendly here. Brewers, not just because they're my team, but I mean, they're a tricky matchup for any pitcher, especially a pitcher in Nick Martinez who struggles against lefties. The Brewers are going to throw 7 lefties at him. There is some pinch hit concerns with guys like Jake Bauers and guys like maybe David Hamilton, but really Jake Bauers and probably Rengifo are the 2 pinch hit guys there. But having Terang, Contreras, Yelich in the lineup and the injuries that they have, I don't think there's a ton of pinch hit concerns there. Nick Martinez just really pitches the contact, gives up fly balls and power to, especially to lefties, but even so to righties there. I think the Brewers, I mean, they're sub 10%, all of their hitters. Nobody's talking about them. And I mean, they just scored a gazillion runs over the weekend, and they steal a ton of bases, right? They had 7 stolen bases on Sunday or Saturday. I mean, I just think this is a great spot, right? Obviously the Rays bullpen is pretty solid and better than the White Sox there, but I think this is a really good spot for the Brewers stack, and I'm not seeing anybody really get to them. And on the Rays side, Caminero, Yandy Diaz, lefty power mashers, right? I think those guys are obviously great plays, but more so interest for me on the Brewers side. What do you see here?
Yeah, I'm with you all around here. So just because of how the slate breaks down, I like Harrison more than I like the Rays. Nick Martinez, never a guy that I'm afraid to pick on, and he was awful in spring training. 29 hits in 13 2/3 innings. Yeah, the Brewers look good here. Just as an effort to save time, because we got a bunch more games to go into, I won't even go in that much more detail because I agree with you. I think the Brewers look really, really good here as a full stack, as pieces, however you want to play them. I don't feel that much different about them than I do some of the other stacks that I've talked about, so I don't have to play them. But if you had them as your top tournament stack, I wouldn't argue with you at all.
Yeah, for sure. Takes us to the next game here. This is going to be a team that does garner some ownership here in the Mets. Obviously, it's good hitting weather here. Full 9 at bats here for the Mets in St. Louis, and horrible bullpen. I mean, St. Louis's bullpen is going to be trash all year. We're going to definitely be playing teams against the Cardinals all year. Their team is just bad in general, but they do have some guys like a Nolan Gorman who has some power. Weatherholt's looked great to start his career. Burleson's just been absolutely ripping the cover off the baseball. I think he's a really, really good play. And I think though Weatherholt, Burleson, first base, second base, little mini stack there. Nobody's going to play them. I think that's really interesting against a guy who pitches the contact in Clay Holmes here. And the Mets seem pretty interesting to me. Another pivot off of the Cubs at very similar salaries. Lindor, Bichette, Soto, Polanco, Beatty. I mean, the back half hurts a little bit, but Carson Bench has looked really good. I think the Mets are pretty interesting here. What do you see?
Yeah, I think both teams in play in tournaments tonight. I think the Mets, just in terms of being one of the top stacks on the board. Kyle Leahy, a pitcher that I think the Mets can definitely get to here. Pretty good hitting weather in this spot. So, yeah, I like the Mets just as an overall stack here. They're kind of pricey in the guys you want, but they've got Jared Young to balance that out at 2K. And again, price doesn't really matter on this slate. I like cheap pitching options. When I say like, it's relative because I don't really like any pitching options, but I'll play the cheaper ones. So getting to expensive stacks, not an issue. Mets definitely in play in that regard. And then the Cardinals, I don't know how much I'm going to get there because I don't think it's the slate for it. But in the slate plan, I wrote them up as the top value stack, and I think they're unequivocally that. Like, they're way too cheap. They've been good. They're not a great offense, but they've got good hitters in their lineup. Obviously, the rookie up top now running a little bit. They've got some power. If Jordan Walker stays hot, like, lineup all of a sudden is lengthened a little bit. If we had, like, stud pitchers on this slate, like opening day, I'd really consider them. I just don't think it's a slate for it because they're so cheap, and I just don't think it's needed. At the end of the day, I'd just rather play better offenses. I'm with
you there. I do think Burleson and Weatherholt both make the case. I mean, they're both going to be unowned. They both second base is going to be soaked up by guys like Nico Horner, Bryce Terang. But even Terang's not really going to get ownership. But really, guys like Nico Horner and all those Cubs guys. So, I mean, Burleson at 4K, Weatherhold at 3,300, I think it's pretty interesting. And maybe in like a Dodger stack, right? You play the value here to afford the Otanis, to afford the Kyle Tucker, to afford the Freddie Freemans, right? Dodgers aren't going to be unowned, and you get two quality hitters in Weatherhold and Burleson who are on fire to start the year. I'm there. But, yeah, not much more to say on either side there. I think we're both pretty aligned there. I don't think the Cardinals as a stack are the best play on the slate on a 10-game slate, just because, I mean, you're probably going to leave a shit ton of salary on the board, which is fine if they are the highest scoring offense on the slate. Yeah, you're probably going to win all the money. I just more like them as one-offs or fillers, and mainly those that 1-3-5, right? Gorman, Weatherholt, Burleson are kind of the guys I'm looking at there.
I will say,
go ahead.
Just real quick, like if you do love the Cardinals as a full stack, I wouldn't be afraid to stack them because I do think their ownership, this is almost like a rare occurrence that you'll see sometimes in MLB because there are no expensive pitching options and the Cardinals are so cheap. Their inexpensive price tags will almost lower their ownership because in order to 5-man stack them, you're almost guaranteed to leave salary on the board. A lot of people don't want to do that. So they're not my favorite stack, but I wouldn't be afraid to play them and leave salary on the board. All I'll say.
Yeah. What about playing a 5-man Cardinal stack with a guy like Ranger Suarez up at the top and another spend up pitcher, not Cabrera, right? And you just totally flip the build. You go five Dodgers. You go five Dodgers, five Dodgers, your Cardinals, or you go like a 4-3 Dodgers Cardinals with 2 spend up pitchers when everybody wants to play Ponce and Cabrera, right? So that's a different way you can flip it on its head too. That I think could be interesting. And yeah, you're 100% right. You run teams. Cardinals are just not going to get thrown in there because the salary is not needed, and that doesn't mean they're bad plays or they're bad leverage or tournament plays. Just because we have no spend up pitchers that people want to play,
right? Exactly.
So
yes.
I think that's a great call out there. Next game here, Astros, Red Sox, Suarez on the mound, Lance McCullers. I just don't think McCullers is right. I think he's broken. I think the Red Sox are really, really interesting here. Roman the Great, Duran, Willie Abreu hit a bomb yesterday. I like him. Marcelo Mayer has some upside there. Young prospect for the Red Sox there. I think the Red Sox are pretty interesting here. They kind of fit the build of the Brewers, an offense that is going to be pretty solid all season long. They have home runs, they have power, they have speed. The Astros bullpen is good. McCullers is not that great. You just saw what the Angels did to the Astros pitching staff over the weekend. I think the Red Sox are pretty damn interesting here. What do you see?
Yeah, we see this very eye to eye. I think the Red Sox might be my favorite tournament stack on the board with the A's. I think the A's might have higher home run ceiling, but I think the Red Sox are just a better offense and are more likelihood to get there than the A's are. McCullers, very boom bust, and when he's off, he puts guys on base. He leaves pitches over the middle. I'm in on Boston here. I think their upside is real. They're not going to get owned. Yeah, they're one of the other teams I talked about that, like, they're not in as good of a spot on paper as the Cubs or the Blue Jays. And yeah, you could say the Blue Jays have a better offense, but I think Boston's offense is really good, especially for DFS purposes. And it's an ownership game, and they're not going to get nearly the love. And I think the upside is just as high. So I'm in on Boston here. I also, like, as the show has gone on, I saw Philly Phantom comment on it. I could get on board with Suarez. Like, I don't like the spot, and he's not like a number one, like ace, but he's like a low end number one to me, and he's cheap. Like, he might be the best overall pitcher on this slate, and that might not even be really close right now. So because of that, he's under 9K. I like the Boston offense, so pairing them together, you get some win equity. I'm liking Boston a lot as the show goes on, their offense, and then I think I'm more in on Suarez than originally thought.
Yeah, I don't hate it by any means there. I think it's pretty interesting. Again, no one's going to play Suarez. No one's clicking that. He's ranked 4th in our pitcher rankings. There is strikeouts in this Astros lineup, and he keeps the ball on the ground anyways, right? So I do think he's the more the show comes on, and we're starved for pitching. I think he's an interesting pivot right there off of Cabrera, who even in the win game is just getting ownership due to people buying on his talent, but more so the Cubs run total and the win equity and everything there. So we see it pretty similar here. And another thing too, look at the bullpen for the Astros, 73 pitches, 40, 39, 35, 35, 23, 22. I mean, it's game 4 of the year. That's a pretty damn taxed bullpen. I know it's early in the year and these guys' arms are fairly fresh, but still, I mean, they could, if McCullers just doesn't have it, they could just leave him out here hung out to dry. You know what I mean? I mean, they used 5 bullpen arms yesterday alone on Sunday. One of those throwing 47 pitches in Munoz. So that's another call out. I know I talk about bullpens a ton middle of the season and the further we get into the season, but I get it. I mean, they just had a hell of a series against the Angels. Tons of runs were scored. I really love the Boston Bats here. I'm with you there. 3 games left to talk about here. We'll cruise through for the most part. This game I just don't love much from a DFS side. The worst park on the slate, in my opinion, for hitting outside of maybe San Diego, which is the next game we're going to talk about here. Yankees, obviously, yeah. Bellinger, Rice, Stanton, Grisham, Judge, those guys can all hit home runs. Jazz. It's just Luis Castillo, I think, is a good enough pitcher. The ballpark sucks. I don't love the spot for offense on either side. What do you see here?
Yeah, I'm with you. Just this ballpark. It's the Yankees. So, like, you like Castillo more than me. So, naturally, I might like the Yankees a little bit more than you. But I think I'd rather play Castillo than stack the Yankees on this slate, just in terms of how pitching breaks down. Probably just a spot I'll avoid. I like Weathers here. He's too cheap for his upside. Feel kind of similarly about him as you do, and maybe I do Lopez. Strikeout upside in this spot. No Cal Raleigh tonight. I'm in on Weathers here. I think it's the only piece of the game that would be a priority for me. Obviously, the Yankees stack always in play.
Yeah, I will say, don't think you're getting Weathers low owned, especially with that Cal Raleigh news. His ownership's probably going to creep up. It's probably, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked to see a bunch of Ponce Weathers pairings, to be honest, and the spend up Blue Jays and Cubs bats together. I mean, that's just going to be their chalk combination. So if you do that, just know you're holding hands with everyone else, and you got to get the lottery ticket right, and hit your 9-leg parlay right, as everyone else, and pick the right 3 Yankees or the right 3 Cubs and Blue Jays, and the other 5 from the same teams correctly as everyone else, right? Obviously, that's any slate, but really so tonight. I'd be shocked not to see a bunch of Ryan Weathers and Ponce. Not saying it's a bad combination, but maybe that's a spot where you go to the Dodgers, you go to the Brewers, you go to the Red Sox, which we already talked about, and play it differently, right? You're still eating the chalk at pitcher, but you're getting different from hitters, and you have no you have no Blue Jays, you have no Cubs in your lineup, right? I mean, these guys fail 7 out of 10 times and they're Hall of Famers, right? So again, I talk about it all the time. That's a little thing to get different there from a roster construction standpoint. And that's how I like to play DFS, right? I don't want to min cash and hold hands with everyone else. I want to either lose or win all the money, right? So that's what we're in it for. You're going to lose a lot more slates than you're going to win. When you win, you want to hit it big, right? To cover all of those losses and then some, to build that bankroll. So next game on the slate, Padres, Giants, pretty similar to the last game. Not much interest here from me in a DFS standpoint. I just don't think Walker Buehler's any good. So if you wanted to roll the dice on the Giants, right, I kind of put the Giants in the tier that you do with the A's, right? I think the Giants are fairly interesting. I hate the ballpark. I hate it. Padres bullpen is really, really good. But again, if you're really looking for teams there, I wouldn't be shocked to see the Giants in MME set be kind of like the White Sox from yesterday. Absolutely unowned. They go and score 6-7 runs, and they find their way as kind of fillers in winning lineups. So what do you see here? Padres, Giants.
Yeah, I don't see a lot, man. I just don't see it. It's going to be really tough to get to these West Coast games offensively when we've got like basically any other games on the slate. Now, it's not like we've got amazing weather spots outside of Chicago. It's not like these pitchers are amazing, but they're not awful. Like, I don't know. I just don't see much from this game. It's baseball, so like absolutely nothing would shock me. If either of these stacks went off, I wouldn't be shocked at all. It would just take me a bunch of lineups to get to anything in this game. Pitching, stacks, one-offs are different, but it's just really hard to see prioritizing either pitcher or either stack here. Do you agree?
Yeah, it is. It's just more so I think Walker Buehler's trash, personally. So that's kind of the reason there. But it's definitely not.
I get that.
It's probably 20-plus teams, to be honest. I might have a sprinkle of Giants in or in my 20 max, but there's so many other offenses that we talked about. I can list 6 to 8 offenses, and either of these teams probably don't hit that list. And we already talked about a bunch of them, and we're going to talk about 2 of them, at least 2 more, if not 3 more, in these next 2 games there. So I think it's pretty safe to say don't really worry about that game too much on either side, pitching or hitters in San Diego there. Obviously, the Padres lineup looks pretty damn good on paper, and you got a lot of name recognition in that lineup. It's just I mean, the Giants just I don't love it. Giants had a good bullpen last year. I expect more of a pretty decent bullpen again this season. So just not a spot I think you got to get to too often here tonight, if any. Takes us in the next game, though. This is probably going to be a spot where we see the Dodgers at some of their lowest ownership we're going to see all year. Messick is I do like this kid. I think he has upside. He's going to have ceiling performances more often than probably not this season. This is a very, very, very boom-bust matchup for both sides, right? Dodgers hitters, yeah, it's the best lineup in baseball, but at times it feels like the Dodgers sleepwalk through the regular season, get to the postseason, and everyone kind of locks in, and they just blow everyone away because their starting rotation and then obviously their lineup behind it is just elite. This spot, though, I mean, you could see this both sides. I mean, you could see an unknown Dodgers team after being chalk all weekend really not do their thing and absolutely smash here. Same thing, you could see Messick post a score as a pivot off a guy like Ponce for $200 more, have 20 to 25 DraftKings points just with strikeouts, right? So what do you see here, Dodgers and the Guardians?
Yeah, it's tough because I'm with you all over. Dodgers ownership is finally going to be subdued. They're expensive. They're not in as good a spot on paper as some of these other teams, but man, their offense is the best in baseball, unequivocally so. And Messick, I think he's good, but he's unproven, and certainly this spot can get to anyone. I mean, the Dodgers can get to the best pitchers, so certainly they could get to Messick here. Because of that, you got to at least leave him in your pool, even if you're not playing them in single entry, which I think you can. Messick himself, I like the idea of playing a sprinkle of him in large field stuff, but that's all it is. You're getting no price discount for just what is a brutal spot, and you see it all the time with pitchers facing the Dodgers. Zach Gallen, like on opening night, started off the game really, really well. 4 innings, I think 2 hits, couple Ks, and then it just all came crashing down against the bottom of the lineup because they got good hitters with home run upside all throughout. So a fool's errand picking pitchers against the Dodgers. I hope both sides just are kind of okay, which most of the time happens, but the Dodgers we know can explode on anyone. The real side of this game I like a lot is Cleveland. Sasaki has not impressed me when he's been on the mound. He was not good in spring training. I think the Guardians offense now getting a park upgrade coming from Seattle after facing that lethal pitching staff the entire series. Even Emerson Hancock looked really, really impressive last night and kind of take a breath of fresh air here, going into a much better hitter's park, facing a guy that has struggled. I like my Guardians here. Obviously, you've got the GOAT Chase DeLauder just raking already in the bigs. J-Ram, Jose Ramirez probably won't get a ton of ownership because he's so expensive. Then you can fill in around them. Kyle Manzardo has home run upside. Bo Naylor. I like the Guardians here. I don't think you have to full stack them, but I like the top of the lineup and mini stack in Cleveland here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the lefties here. I mean, you look at Sasaki's numbers against lefties, and it's just absolutely atrocious. His K rate and his walk rate are the exact same. Well, within two percentage points of each other. 16.7 to 14.6 last season, looking at the numbers. He gives up a ton of power and fly balls. I mean, he's almost at a 40% fly ball rate to lefties. DeLauder, I love. J-Ram, I love. Manzardo, tons of power. Bo Naylor, tons of power. Sheeneman at a second base position. Nobody's going to click that name. I think he's great. Rich Homie Kwan, right? Like any pitcher that struggles against left-handed hitters is going to hate going up against the Guardians, right? We're going to love throwing lefties against the Guardians. We're going to play pitchers against the Guardians a ton this season, but I think this is a spot to get on them, right? I much prefer the Guardians over a team like the A's here, I think, in tournaments. I like the lefties a ton. Stephen Kwan, tons of he's got power. He's got stolen base upside. J-Ram, nobody's clicking his name at third base at $5,600. But again, salary's irrelevant on the slate unless you just literally click every highest price hitter on the slate. So I think the Guardians are really interesting. I'm going to be overweight on them for sure in MME sets. Probably not making a main team or a single entry, 3-max, something like that. But I won't hate it, at least as a mini stack. Probably not going to 5-man stack the Guardians. But again, I'm not throwing anything out in my MME pool. This is just a bet against Sasaki not being good. And the Guardians again. So I like the lefties here. And obviously the whole lineup outside of a guy like Rhys Hoskins and Arias, if they crack the lineup, are going to hit from the left side here. So this is a matchup nightmare for Sasaki here. And I think in tournaments, this is a spot where no one's going to go to. And I think it has upside, much like the spot in the next game here. Tigers and the D-backs. Soroka on the mound for the D-backs. Verlander, the corpse of him, on the mound for the Tigers. What do you see here? D-backs and Tigers. Tigers, one of my favorite stacks on the board. The lefties again here. Kevin McGonigal, another stud rookie. Just a breakout. I mean, this dude's going to be really good, much like DeLauder, much like the other rookies that we talked about. I mean, it's a rookie breakout season for in the majors right now. What do you see here? Tigers, D-backs to round us out.
Yeah, this is definitely a game for offense here. Verlander was good in spring training, but I'm not buying it. You got good hitting weather tonight in Arizona. Soroka really struggled in spring training, and certainly he's a guy that we can pick on. He was good last year, so I'm not sure how I feel about Detroit, but I think their upside's real, and they're not going to be highly owned. So that in itself gets me to like them in tournaments. I think you can make a case for Soroka in tournaments also, but I think the Tiger side is probably the most appealing side to get to in tournaments. And then Arizona, I think they look pretty good against Verlander. Verlander isn't a guy that I think you have to pick on, but he's not a guy I'm afraid to pick on either. Well, his best days are well behind him. He's got a lot of moxie. I like the cut of his jib. So, again, I don't think you have to pick on him, but there will be some starts this year where he gets absolutely destroyed. I have no doubt about it. Wouldn't be shocked if it happens tonight in Arizona. They finally get out of L.A. They faced all the Dodgers' best pitchers. Now they get a breath of fresh air in Verlander. So I think you can make a case for either offense here. Little late-night hammer. I like some of the other spots we talked about more, but these teams are right up there. How do you compare these two teams with teams like Milwaukee, who I know you like a lot?
Yeah, I like Milwaukee a ton. Just not even being a homer. They're hitting the shit out of the baseball right now. I think Nick Martinez is not a good pitcher. Pitches the contact. So I have the Brewers in kind of my top 3 or 4. But the Tigers are right there. Tigers are on my main team. I'm just buying on the lefty power here. Kerry Bonds, Colt Keith, who is a pinch hit concern, but I think again third base pivot off of guys like Nico Horner, Riley Green, tons of power. McGonigal. Tons of power. Play him at third base or shortstop. Parker Meadows slept on. And I just don't – the D-backs bullpen was trash last year. I think it's not going to be good again this year. And then on the D-back side, one of my favorite mini stacks on the slate in like a 5-3 lineup is Marte, Carroll, Perdomo. Lefties absolutely mash Verlander. They've always done it. You got 3 of the best lefty hitters in baseball. Perdomo's looking like an absolute stud coming out of World Baseball Classic. Ketel Marte is obviously one of the best hitters in all of baseball. Same with Corbin Carroll. Those 3 alone have some of the most upside on the entire slate. So Marte, Carroll, Perdomo, I like those guys a lot. Pavin Smith has some pinch hit concerns, but the lefties for the D-backs. My guy Alec Thomas, nobody ever clicks him. Always has tons of power. He's more so a play on slates where we have spend up pitching because he always hits in like that bottom 3. Nobody clicks him, and he's always good for some home runs, and it's a nice separator there. But I really like the top 3 for the D-backs. From a full stack perspective, I prefer the Tigers just with the full 9 at bats. I think Soroka pitched a little over his head last year. We'll see again. So and I just think the Tigers offense is good. Adding a guy like Kevin McGonigal is a big plus there. There is no There is no. Oh, that was Hedges over Bo Naylor there, but yeah, that rounds us out there. Matt, let's do the home run calls. Do you have any home run calls for the people? And then give your favorite sneaky stack. I know we talked a bunch about it, but I like to round out the show if people are tuning in late, just to catch the kind of synopsis. So your favorite tournament pitcher, your favorite tournament low owned stack, and then a home run call for the people.
I'm going to go Ryan Weathers. I know he's going to get some ownership, but he's now one of the big two. So that's my favorite pitcher in tournaments. I'm going to go with that athletic stack. I think they get to Bryce Elder here. At least I'm hoping so. And I am going to go with a guy from that stack. Give me Brent Rooker going yard here. So I like the athletics in tournaments. I understand your hesitation. No doubt there are a bunch of good teams to like here, but I think I'm going to push in my chips a little bit with the athletics in this spot.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I'm going to go Kyle Harrison. I'm just going to be a buyer here. I think he's a great pivot off a guy like Ponce. Actually, no, scratch that. I'm going to go Jacob Lopez. Same price point as Ponce. Literally probably 1/6 the ownership. I mean, Ponce is probably going to push 60% in single entry stuff, especially smaller field stuff. Lopez is probably going to be 10%, right? So I like that a ton. I think the Brewers in tournaments are super interesting as a full stack here. Again, I don't like Nick Martinez. I think he's a bad pitcher in general. I really like the lefties for the Brewers. And then you got Contreras, who was hitting the shit out of the baseball. And you got some nice cheap guys, Garrett Mitchell, David Hamilton, Frelick, Bowers, right, who is absolutely murdering baseballs right now, especially in spring. He hit like 571 in spring training. So I like the Brewers a ton as a low-owned stack. And then my home run call, I thought you were going to go. I'm going back to the Guardians against Sasaki. I'm going to the 2 spot, at least projected 2 spot, Chase DeLauder. I'm going to ride the well here. I think he gets one off of Sasaki. He struggles against lefties. DeLauder's looked absolutely incredible, hitting for a shit ton of power here. It's a good hitter's park in LA with some wind blowing out there. So I like some Chase DeLauder at 3,600 to go deep to round us out there. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Helps us out a ton. If you're not a member yet, head over to shipitnation.com, click this button, join the nation. All of our packages are broken down here. The trial, $19 for 5 days, gives you access to all of our content, SaberSim, everything we have to offer over at the site to check us out. If not, you just want single sport, head over to MLB. You get Optimizer plus our content for $49 a month. You can't even get SaberSim for under $100 a month going to sabersim.com. So no brainer to partner us up with our partner SaberSim. Get the best of both worlds there. And then if you want all access, obviously we have those plans as well. Matt, appreciate you joining. It's going to be a fun season with you and I here on Mondays. I know the next couple of weeks, or at least the next week, G Risen's going to fill in until he goes on vacation. But no, it was a fun show. Again, appreciate all the interaction in the chat, all the comments, everyone tuning in. For Belman, I'm Nades. Good luck tonight in those contests. Hope to see those shipping and the logos at the top. We're out here. Peace.